and trying to make people smile with my music and helping people with my music, I could actually, in an operational sense, through logistics and supplies, help people who needed it. So what I ended up doing is I went to, when the tsunami happened, I saw these images of destruction on the TV, and I decided what I had learned at 9/11 could possibly be utilized to help people that were hurt by the tsunami. So I joined up with a team that went to Sri Lanka, and I helped orphans, I helped arrange medical supplies, helped build houses, and from there I got more experience in doing this humanitarian work in a disaster environment. So then I just come back from the tsunami in Sri Lanka. Then Hurricane Katrina happened. So I didn't expect that all these disasters would keep happening. I didn't know they'd keep happening. I thought, I'll go back from Sri Lanka and I'll go and do my music again. But just as soon as I got back to the States, Hurricane Katrina hit, and I was asked by some people that I had worked with at 9/11 if I would please join them as a logistics officer with an effort to help rescue people in New Orleans. So I went down with several rescue boats, 26 rescue boats from a company called Zodiac that makes these special operations boats. We worked with the United States Army, who was placed there to help rescue people and secure the city of New Orleans, which was mostly underwater. After about 2 weeks of working logistics and working with the boats, I went out into New Orleans because I love kutas and billies. They're Kubsalit and Betreen, I think they're Zabardast. And so these kutas and billies, they were in need of rescuing and help. So because of my love for the animals, and I'm so happy, so many wonderful things I've learned about Islam since I've been in Pakistan. And one of my favorite, I must admit, one of my favorite things about Islam that I've learned is how much the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, had said to be kind to all the animals. And I think that literally hundreds of years before anyone else on the planet had figured out being kind to other people, being kind to the animals is the mark of a society. Being kind to others, like when the lady was throwing the trash on the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and he did not retaliate in anger. Even though he had a right to be angry, and he had a right to throw it right back at her. Instead, you know what he did. And so instead, she embraced Islam because of his love. This is the message that he was sending to humanity hundreds of years before anyone else even thought of this thing. So, but with animals in particular, because they're so innocent, because they're so dependent on us, because they reflect what society gives them. If society is mean to animals, animals will not be clean, they won't be friendly, they'll bite you. If a society is kind to the animals, then the animals will be kind and good and friendly and these kinds of, especially the kutas and the billies and these kinds of things. So when I came to Pakistan and I learned about these teachings of the Holy Prophet, then I said to myself, wow, this is something that's always been a part of me anyway. This is something that I've always felt. So many things about Islam have been what I've always felt. And I just didn't know in which way and how it was to be presented to me. But so many things that, like my employee here, who has been with me since the earthquake, Zubair Makhdoom, has taught me about Islam, have been so inspiring to me and have kept me going in Pakistan. So when I got back from Hurricane Katrina, helping these animals and rescuing animals, pretty much after about a month, most of the animals had been either rescued or placed in shelters or at least out of a dangerous situation. Many animals had died also, of course, but we were able to save a lot of animals, which made me very happy inside. So you can go to the next slide. The day I got back from Hurricane Katrina was October 8th, 2005. On October 8th, 2005, I came into the house after driving for all day from New Orleans back to Maryland. About almost 1,000 miles I drove in a day and a half. And my son, who was about 14 years old at the time, now he's 19, He's in university. By the way, I'm an old man. I'm 43, so I'm getting old. And but at that time, I came into the house. I just gave my son a hug. We sat down to a Pizza Hut pizza, turned on the television, and not 5 minutes into the door, I see this earthquake in Pakistan all over the news and on the television. And because of the time difference, by the time the 8th of evening that I was seeing this, it was already the morning of the 9th here in Pakistan. It would have been the evening of the 8th. So they knew a little bit about some of the damage and some of the destruction and how many people would be affected. The other thing I realized was that logistically speaking, this would be the most difficult disaster of any of the ones I'd been and seen before. Because just speaking in a logistical and an operational sense, the 9/11 attacks were in a very small area, and it was a terrorist attack. It was a big destruction, but it wasn't spread over a large area with thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people and millions affected and displaced. So it was a different kind of disaster. Then there was the disaster in tsunami, which was spread out, but it didn't have a lot of people, for the most part, injured that survived. Either the wave killed the people, or they were safe. Now, homes were destroyed, and I know it was a bad disaster. Many children were orphaned. It was a terrible disaster, no doubt. But it was different from Pakistan, because in Pakistan, you had a situation where there was a lot of children and a lot of people that survived, thousands and thousands, with terrible injuries. In New Orleans, only about 2,000 people at the highest estimates died. A lot of animals were affected. A lot of people, the whole city was shut down. About 800,000 people were displaced and had to go to other places. So it was a big mess. But it wasn't like Pakistan earthquake. And the biggest difference between the New Orleans Katrina hurricane tragedy and the earthquake, two differences. One, New Orleans is completely flat, and it was easy for the army and whoever rescuing to get around. In this place, you see the mountains there. This is where I work. You can go back. In these mountains where I work, obviously, as you know, very, very difficult terrain, very difficult conditions. The other thing is, there was absolutely no warning, obviously. With Hurricane Katrina, we knew 5 days before the storm. But 5 days before it hit, we knew it was going to hit somewhere in the Gulf Coast. And 2 days before the storm, we knew it was going to hit the coast of Louisiana somewhere. So we had some warning. And still our government messed it up, I'm sorry to say. They didn't deploy resources quick enough. They didn't take it seriously. They didn't evacuate people who needed to be evacuated quickly enough. And there was time, because 2 operational days before the storm was enough time to get the people out of New Orleans. Most of the poor in New Orleans, they didn't get them out. That's what caused this big tragedy for the most part. So when I saw this disaster on the television, I turned to my son. Within a second of seeing this, I turned to my son. I said, I'm going to Pakistan. And the reason I knew I was going to Pakistan was because Allah had put a feeling in my heart, instantly, a compulsion that I could not resist. I don't know if I'm sure that some of you or most of you have at some point in your life felt inspired to do something, and you had to do it. You couldn't stop even if you wanted to. You felt, God put this feeling in your heart, you have to go do this, you have to go there. This is what you have to do. Even if it was dangerous, even if it was something that your friends would not like, even if your family would be angry with you, even if your friends would look down upon you, even if people would say you're stupid or crazy, whatever, they can say whatever they want. In my case, I had this feeling, this compulsion that I should go to Pakistan because the disasters of 9/11, Hurricane Katrina and tsunami had taught me something that I think could be useful to the people of Pakistan affected by this earthquake. So, I looked at my son, I said I'm going to Pakistan, and I got on the phone. I got onto Google first, and I typed Pakistan Embassy, Washington, D.C. phone number. I got the phone number, called the Pakistan Embassy. Make a long story short, that day I left a message. The next day they got back to me. I volunteered. I said, I'm a logistics person. If you know of any doctors or rescuers that are going, I'm happy to join. Here's my experience where I've been before. They called me back and they said, yes, there is a team of doctors from Washington, D.C., Pakistani-American doctors, and maybe